Patrick Mahomes.
They're also set at 9.5. They won the AFC South last year and did win 10 games. Year 3 for CJ. Brew, you mentioned it was a little bit of a great rookie year and a little bit of a dip, but he did win 10 games. Here are their opponents this year at home: Cardinals, Broncos, Raiders, 49ers, Bills, Bucks. On the road, Chiefs, Chargers, Rams, Seahawks, and then your Ravens. Brew, you were high on the Texans. I don't know where you're going now.
This is a tough one. Look, if they hadn't had what I think was a kind of a resurgence in the playoffs, you know, they obviously crushed the Chargers, played well against the Chiefs. I think CJ at the end of the year, like he seemed like he recognized maybe, I don't know what it was, but he kind of took his eye off the prize and maybe got a little big-headed with all his success. But
oh my God,
I think he'll be back to playing better next year. So I actually am going over, a little bit of trepidation here, but I'm going to go over based on the nice play they had in the playoffs.
Yeah, here's the thing I struggle with this offseason versus last offseason. Last offseason was huge for them in terms of how aggressive they were in free agency and the pieces they added and the marquee players they added. This offseason, so that, again, they move on from Tunsil, so that's one issue, and they bring in Cam Robinson, and you think, okay, that's their answer. But Cam Robinson gave up the 4th most sacks last season. Okay, so that's an issue. And this offensive line gave up the 3rd most sacks last season with 52.
And Tunsil was their best guy. He had a lot of penalties, but he was their best guy.
And they brought in 5 offensive linemen this offseason. Robinson was one of them. Trent Brown is on a 1-year deal. We'll see what he can do and whether or not he's hurt. And then they've got 3 other guys they brought in to hopefully solidify that position. They can address it in the draft as well. So that's my biggest issue is, did they really solve that part of the problem? But when you look at as much as I don't love what they've done, really, what's the rest of the division done?
I don't know. Hired a new head coach, gotten Trevor Lawrence healthy.
Well, okay, so we hired a new head coach.
They got to work on his footwork
and his pitch count.
So I'd imagine there's going to be a learning curve there, and then there's going to be a rookie quarterback in Tennessee, and maybe that's a great thing. Maybe it isn't.
Probably
and then you've got the issue. What do the Colts present? Have they solved their quarterback issue? It doesn't really seem like they've got a great solution. So as much as I'm not excited about what they've done this offseason. There's nobody in that division to where I look at it and say, okay.
So Coach has the same analysis as me, except he's disrespecting the Jags and I'm not. Because all of Coach's rationale is to take an under, and the reason not to is because and you might end up being right. Listen, I was wrong.
Going over,
Say it again.
Sounds like
I'm over. Yeah.
No, correct. But everything he laid out was a reason for an under, and then at the end you were like, but no one else in that division scares you. You're going to have, an easy path within the division, and I think the Jaguars could scare you. I think the Jaguars were out on Peterson. I think that Trevor, I think he was hurt. He was hurt last year. He missed games. They had to play Mac Jones, for the love of God. And I think the Texans we were talking about CJ last year. Man, look at this receiving core. Now we're going to be saying, man, look at this receiving core. It's Nico Collins.
And show.
Who's excellent. Yeah. No, Nico, friend of the show or not, he's excellent. But poor Tank Dell's going to miss the whole year. Diggs is gone. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they used their first-round pick on a wide receiver, which is not ideally what you'd want to do when you thought it was a position of strength. I think the trade of Tunsil was I tried to get it in the show every day for a week. I thought it was such a big deal. I thought it was shocking. That guy has been one of the 4th best left tackle in the league for basically a decade. They move off him when the offensive line is unsettled.
Yeah, I'm not totally shocked, but when you're giving up that many sacks, when you're giving up the 3rd most sacks, and you got a guy that you're paying a ton of money to, and he's getting penalties, and you're not very good, why not at least try to
But he's not the one giving up the sacks.
Well, but what I'm saying is, if you're gonna revamp it, you might
revamp the whole thing.
Do a total overhaul and try to put some of those resources into getting younger, better, and longer.
This is a bet.
Yeah. So this is a tough one, because it is hard to figure out, what the Texans are looking to do right now. And they obviously do need to revamp, right? No one can deny that. And it was definitely a frustrating season last year, but I take such issue with this idea, oh, CJ Stroud took his eye off the prize, and maybe you got too big head. It's just such nonsense. I mean, all I heard was everyone defending, Caleb Williams had such a bad O-line, and Patrick Mahomes, and CJ Stroud was pressured 235 times. Patrick Mahomes 212. Caleb Williams 241. So I mean, like, can we stop? Can we stop with this nonsense? I mean, like, I just want to know why we wanted, like, we'll say, oh, Patrick Mahomes had a bad O-line and so did Caleb Williams, but, like, then we don't want to, like, actually offer that to CJ Stroud. I just don't understand. And then the fact that he also then had his weapons in and out of the lineup. Nico Collins going down, Stephon Diggs going down, Tank Dell going down. I mean, the guy, okay, so he had no O-line. He had nobody to throw the ball to. He had a fired offensive coordinator. But, CJ Stroud just took his eye off the prize. He just got too big-headed. Based off of what? Like, where is that in CJ Stroud's, personality? I just take such issue with that. I really do. And considering all the chaos that he dealt with, it really wasn't too bad, quite frankly. When you really put things in context. And I've said this a lot about everything with Bobby Slowick, and I always try my best not to repeat myself as much, but it's unavoidable. And just that, again, he was a young offensive coordinator. And I think that when you're a young offensive coordinator and you're dealing with some O-line issues and you're dealing with, an injured roster where players are kind of going in and out of the lineup, you kind of don't know what's going on, and then you're missing a big key weapon, you need to have an experienced offensive mind to figure out how to balance and navigate that. Heck, we saw even Shanahan struggle with that when he kept trying to be like, is Christian McCaffrey going to be here? Is, Brandon Ayuk going to be here? Is Kittle, what's the story here? It's not easy to figure out. And it takes a ton of experience. It takes you to really be around the block. And it definitely helps when you have an O-line or when you have a consistent run game or, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, it was kind of the perfect causes and conditions to have CJ Stroud, take a step back, so to speak, and be uncomfortable more often than not. So, if like, it's just kind of funny because Brew literally said last week, the offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs is why the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. So then I just want to know why you're not saying that for the Houston Texans, that's why CJ Stroud struggled, because his O-line was, disappointing and they gave up a ton of pressure. Like, I just want to know, like, why again, we have to be consistent in that regard. And it's all balanced because you also got to figure out, you got to factor in coaching, you got to factor in weapons, you got to factor in defense. That's why you can't just 100% blame the O-line or 100% not blame the O-line. Some team can have kind of like not a great O-line, but they can clearly have awesome weapons or a great run game and great defense. So you can't say, oh, well, look how good he's doing without a bad O-line. Like, it's got to be balanced. It's got to be balanced. And there, CJ Stroud was going up against a lot, because like, you couldn't say that Caleb Williams had the weapons, but you could say didn't have a consistent run game, didn't have a good offensive coordinator, so like that's why it's never all just the same answer. But when CJ Stroud clearly had all these check boxes going against him, I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. It's like I don't know what else to tell you. So it's a frustrating thing to see. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't have a strong feeling of their over-under, quite frankly. The Texans are 100% a wait-and-see team for me, personally. I'm not doubting them. I obviously just went on a whole rant defending them and defending CJ Stroud, but, like, I don't have a strong sense. Some of their moves in the offseason, I'm like, okay, I just kind of have to wait and see, especially because some of the moves that they're making, it's like, well, I have to really wait and see, like, what are you doing in the draft, right? Like, what is your plan of attack in the draft? Are you drafting a wide receiver? Like, what are you actually doing? But, like, there's definitely going to be some tough games on there. I know you beat the Chargers, but that's going to be a tough game. The Chiefs will be a tough game. The Ravens will be a tough game. I do think that there's a real possibility that the Jaguars take a step forward. Me and Nick are a little bit closer aligned with the whole Trevor Lawrence thing. I'm not as high on Trevor Lawrence as Nick is, but I do think there's a real possibility that the Jags are definitely a better than they were last year. I think, upgrade in coaching potentially, as well as, just Trevor will be, healthy. So like, you're obviously going to be a better team. It's not like Trevor Lawrence is just a garbage quarterback and just an absolute disaster. So if they can get some kind of, stability there, they'll be a better team. The Colts are an interesting question mark. Like, I believe in Shane Steichen as an offensive mind. I'm not so sure how I feel about him as a head coach. But like, a part of me is kind of like, I don't know, is he going to be able to make Daniel Jones work? Like, are we going to see kind of like a Sam Darnold situation? I'm like, I don't know. That's like, Greg Jennings has been consistently high on Daniel Jones. I'm like, I don't believe AR is going to magically become a great quarterback. Like, I've just seen, nothing but disasters there. So it's hard for me. So just the fact that they potentially still kind of have this like carousel of quarterbacks going on there, I think the Colts are a hard team to have confidence in. And then again, the Titans will most likely have a rookie quarterback starting. So then it's just like, unless he just absolutely lights the league on fire from day one, hard to imagine that. So, there's a real possibility that they're going to definitely still be able to beat up on the division, get some wins there. And yeah, it's going to be, and the Bills, because when I was talking about some of the hard games, the Bills as well, this isn't the easiest schedule. There's not a ton of like easy kind of like, all right, you can guarantee some wins. And you obviously have when you have to play the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills, all in the same season, like, those are guaranteed 3 tough games. The Chargers are going to want some revenge. So, but yeah, they're a wait and see team for me for sure. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Houston Texans? What do you think about the whole sophomore slump of CJ Stroud and the fact that they will have, win less than, 9 games or less, according to Nick? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.